Hello, I am Stephanie Joy, the attorney at All Things Social Security and Joy Disability Law. Your video is about to start. I just wanted to remind you that if you click the join button below, you can learn more about the memberships offered at a very affordable price that can give you a little more direct attorney answers to your questions. Have a great day and enjoy the video. Hey, and good morning. It's still morning. Just a quick share based on a viewer's question, I suppose. Some people are under the impression that you have to find your impairment that disables you under the SSA Blue Book listings. This isn't true at all. I mean, that's not the list of recognized impairments. That's only the listing level impairments. So let's just explain this a little bit. There's a handful, relatively, of impairments that under certain circumstances will rise to the level of a listing impairment. You can have a diagnosis that falls under a listing level impairment, but you're not going to be listing level yourself unless your medical records indicate that you are. So it still always comes down to those robust medical records on a frequent durational, basis with updated diagnostics and, hopefully, a little bit of articulation by our medical providers. Most people don't meet a listing, I don't believe. But they will still be able to, if they do their due diligence, follow all the best practices for building their evidence, can meet it under the next way of doing so, which is by your RFC, residual functional capacity. That is the assessment that the SSA is going to do once they get all of your medical records and all your statements, but mostly the medical records, to decide what your residual, meaning remaining, functional ability to perform tasks that would be related to the various occupations out there, of which there are 12,000, supposedly, your capacity of that. What's remaining? What's the residual? What's remaining after consideration of all the limitations imposed by your evidenced impairments? Okay, so, if a person, some people are hesitant to file because they say, I don't see my particular condition, my diagnosis on the in the Blue Book listings under the SSA.gov website. That is irrelevant. So long as they are medically determinable impairments, you reach first part of one step here. And that will happen, being an MDI, medically determinable impairment, will happen if your doctor has followed the acceptable medical protocol to get that diagnosis. They can't just make it because they presume it necessarily. They have to actually show it could be the physical examination findings, whatever is considered acceptable in the medical world that the SSA has embraced for a valid diagnosis, then that will be accepted by the SSA as a valid diagnosis and an MDI. Then, of course, how it's described in the medical records will decide whether it's severe. Once it's severe, which is not hard to do, the rest comes down to, well, is it a listing? Usually no. And if not, then what is that residual functional capacity of that person with that medically determinable impairment? And are there any jobs that person can do with that RFC in hand? What kind of less arduous job could they do, if any? What about less thinking job, if any? Could be a combination of the two. But so remember, don't even blink if you don't find your impairment on the list of listings. That is a handful. that is such a minor list. Is it, you could say, is it great when you meet a listing? I actually think not so much. Yeah, your case will go quicker and you will win. However, it usually means you're far more screwed up medically. And it's troublesome. I'd rather see people not be so screwed up and still prevail, have a residual functional capacity, that lets them enjoy life a little bit and do many things, activities that do not rise to the level of being able to work a full-time job. If you're not able to work a full-time job, I certainly hope you're able to enjoy life in other ways, maybe work part-time, maybe engage in hobbies, enjoy your family. So you might want to hope you meet a listing, but I don't think it's all a bed of roses if you do. Of course, meeting isn't going to change how you're actually feeling one way or the other, but I'm just throwing that out there. But do not worry if you do not meet a listing. Think about your functional limitations. Think long and hard about them. There's probably so many that you're not even thinking of. That's why it's helpful to look at, say, number 20 on the function report, because that has a pretty robust list of tasks that are considered necessary in most jobs in some sort of combination or another. And when you look at that list, think long and hard about, is any of that impacted? People often say, well, that's not affected. I'll see no check mark on something. Like they check off, I can't, their walking is limited, standing, but then they'll leave stair climbing unimpacted. If your walking is impacted, how can your stair climbing not be? I don't know if I've ever seen such a case. Could it be possible? I'm sure, maybe. And I think the reason why they forego that is because they never had to do stair climbing at their job. That is not what this question is about. This question is not about your old job and what things you couldn't do as well as you would have liked. It is about your body today and whether any things on those Section 20 areas are affected. So, and when I say affected, I mean, presume unaffected means you can do them all constantly in an 8-hour day, all day long. Each one of those if you had to. Another way of putting it is, can you do all those things like you could when you were 20? When you were healthy as a horse, if you were at 20, and hopefully you were. This is where you got to start getting into the details of your own condition, in the legal detail ways that is necessary to prove these little micro limitations that you don't even think about. I know I've talked about this ad nauseum in other videos, but give it a thought, and do not worry about those listings. Do not worry about those listings, okay? I mean, if you have them, so be it. We'll get to it. It will be found. But if you don't, like most people, that's not a reason to give up, okay? But you have to start to micro here. And hopefully you have an advocate or attorney who does that with you, because sometimes, particularly if you're not seeing this video and similar ones like it, people just don't know to do that. Anyway, all right, have a great time, guys. I actually have a physical limitation right now. I did something to my foot. I'm on crutches. And I think I might do a little off-topic video on it because it's almost like a reminder to me. And this happens occasionally, whether it's Mother Nature or some other reason, these things happen. And it's a good reminder to me in a micro, small way of how even like small injuries will leave often significant limitations. Now, does it stop me from working? No, because I'm sitting down at a desk and I have crutches. But, if there was a combination of other things, it could, and it would have to last 12 months or be expected to last 12 months. But maybe we'll go into that in a different video because it is kind of a reminder. But to me, which is a good little check and balance for me in any attitudinal problems. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. I can figure out how to shut off this, newest thing.